Good day, everyone. This is David Haynes again with another edition of Rural Insights Podcast, Whispers, Noise, and Rumors. And we're really delighted today to have Representative Prestin with us from the 108th House District. His district runs all the way over from Chippewa County on the east, is all the way through Delta and into Menominee Delta. And it's a pretty geographically large district. Is it the largest, Representative, now in the UP?
There's been some discussions, but I've been doing some measuring. I think I've got the largest geographic district, but yeah. It's close between myself and Rep Markinen.
Yeah, I thought so, because I live in Big Bay, and I think he comes all the way down to Big Bay in Marquette County, the northern county. Well, thank you for joining us, and Brenna Musser is our student researcher, is joining us today, and she may or may not ask a question. I'll leave that up to her. She not only is a brilliant researcher, but she's a star soccer player at Northern Michigan University. So we're delighted to have her. The Representative,
fantastic.
Thanks. What do you think are the top couple of issues to the people of the 108th, just from a policy point of view of what's really important to them that the state legislature could do?
Just the overlying issues with me are really just trying to provide more opportunity, and whether that be through housing, jobs, and just, availability of a quality way of life up in the UP is something that I've been after, and I've watched its decline. My mom was born and raised in Menominee County and Stevenson in particular, so I've been coming to the UP my entire life, and I've watched as the decades have rolled on just a continual decline, especially in the rural parts of the Upper Peninsula. And I think we all see the shuttered up resorts, restaurants, scattered all throughout the UP, especially in the district that I represent. And, they designated the Billerud project, which I was involved in, and was happy to see it come to fruition as a Renaissance zone. And I really think we need to look at the UP as a whole as a Renaissance zone that needs to be reinvigorated. I think the UP has so much potential that's untapped yet. And I see it as a blank canvas that's really yet to be painted.
So you have a very diverse district. You have some very, very rural areas, which every representative in the UP does, and you have some, if you will, metropolitan areas, certainly Sault Ste. Marie and Menominee and Marinette, that whole region bordering over in Wisconsin is really big, and tourism tends to drive a lot of that. One of the issues, though, that we're whether it's rural or metropolitan, that we've written a lot about is veterans. I'm a veteran. I'm an Air Force veteran, and the issues that they have in rural areas, and the isolation and the difficulty of life. Any specific things with veterans in your district or the UP that we could do that you think?
Well, I was a two-term county commissioner in Menominee County, so our veteran affairs officer was a big part of it. My neighbors were both, one was a Vietnam veteran, one was deployed in the Gulf. So, the veteran community in the UP they're there. It's a little more difficult for them. I think in some ways the UP suits some and maybe inhibits others, especially when it comes to accessibility to advanced care or needs that veterans with certain disabilities or PTSD may be suffering through. But, in the UP, you do the best that you can with what you have. And I see that, in Menominee and Delta and Schoolcraft, as I tour these counties, they're all doing the best that they can with what they have. And I'll tell you, we're a community. The UP is it's a place of community, and the one thing that I'm always impressed by is when somebody's in need, there's usually always somebody there, a neighbor, to lend a helping hand.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think, as you know, for veterans, that's very much true with Contact a Buddy program and others, where veterans helping, reaching out, watching for veterans with PTSD or other issues they may need help. That clearly is very true. And I think one of the other strengths is that we have the Oscar Johnson Veterans Hospital in Iron Mountain and serves the whole UP. It's one of the highest rated in the country. But we hear a lot about what you just said: isolation, difficulty with maybe service-related disabilities, and where to go for help when you're 180 miles from someplace. So what about issues? Do you hear much about childcare? We hear a lot about this, where people saying, you know, I could go to, even if I go get a job, I'm going to pay more in childcare than I do for my house payment or my rent. And even if I could afford it, the availability. Is childcare an issue in the 108th House District?
Oh, definitely. You know, it was an issue before COVID, and I think post-COVID, COVID really exacerbated it, you know, to almost on an exponential level as far as what I'm seeing. That's a tough one, you know, when especially in our rural communities, again, and that's another aspect that here in Lansing, there's a lot of stuff that's going on and not a lot of stuff that's really getting down to the grassroots and going after some of these problems like you're bringing up with childcare. I'd love to be talking about that right now. Unfortunately, that's not on the agenda. And with us being in minority in all three branches, the agenda is not, we don't dictate the agenda. The agenda is pretty much handed to us. So you take your wins and you fight the fight when you can. But that's definitely an area where I think more care, more due regard needs to be paid attention to. And just clearing a lot of the landmines and the walls that are in the way. You know, some of the legacy childcare facilities, you know, they're really put in a pickle when it comes to current regulation. And I think we got to have an honest look at childcare and how to best handle it going forward. And that's going to take some dynamic thinking on a lot of people's parts.
And you're right, and it's also about regulation, state regulation and federal regulation. Even if you can get people to do the care, then you've got to deal with all the regulation of somebody who's only going to take 4 kids. And
that's really the hurdle, is the regulatory reform that needs to happen, you know, to kind of clear some of these headwinds that are preventing, you know, people from starting up like a cottage-style, you know, childcare facility, you know. So I look forward to the day when we can have those discussions.
Right.
But we're not there yet.
Not there. What are some of the issues you think are UP-wide? I know veterans are, and I know childcare. Are there other issues as you look at the 108th and you talk to your colleagues from the UP that really are UP-wide issues that the legislature ought to be spending some head time on?
You know, it's not only the legislature, but it's our local units of government. Housing's a big one. You know, we have the UP is, as you drive through, we've got an aging infrastructure when it comes to single family homes. And you know, there would definitely be many more people relocating to the UP if we had more housing availability. So I think housing and affordable housing going forward is a key one. Opportunity, job growth, especially jobs and job availability on the eastern side. I see the east. You know, when you look at Marquette's, you know, thriving. So is the Menominee area, and to that extent, Escanaba and Delta. But when I look to the west, I see an area that is in desperate need, where a couple of industries, if they lost them, they would really be, you know, in a bind up there. And to have all your eggs in one basket, like some of these counties do, it's just, you need to see them thriving better, more diverse, in the jobs market than what they have right now.
Yeah, housing is a tough one to solve, isn't it? I mean, is it private sector driven? Is it public sector driven? What role can you do? And for a private developer, you're not going to build housing you can't make money on. I mean,
And that's just it. It's exacerbated by the labor crisis and material cost. I mean, when you're talking about fair market value of some of these homes, you can't build them for the price that you're going to need to sell them for. I mean, the cost to market value ratios are completely skewed right now, just due to building material costs and our supply chains, as well as our labor costs. Our labor costs are through the roof, because there's just not enough people out there to build these homes that we need. And you look out on the horizon, and I don't see any relief. We're in a population contraction especially when it comes to skilled trades.
Yes, I just read too the article. I think I put it in one of my columns. I think it's over half the skilled trades community is over the age of 45 now. I think it's a big number, whatever it is.
Yeah,
and they're just not being replaced.
Yeah, I used to own, for those of your listeners that don't know, I used to own Cedar River Plaza. That's a truck stop. It's right in between Escanaba and Menominee.
Sure.
And I can remember having several talks with truckers that I'm 57. So having several talks with truckers, and we would talk about, boy, we really don't know what's going to happen when our demographic fully retires from the system. And I continue to have these conversations with friends and people here in Lansing, as well as back in the district, that are similar to my age, anywhere from 45 to 60, and when that demographic retires, it's looking pretty tough. So it's something that we need to be mindful of going forward. I just attended an event at the Union Hall in Escanaba with four kids that got apprenticeships, in the trades.
Sure.
So, but we need more.
Yeah, and of course, in your district, you're fortunate you have Bay College with a trades program for serving a good part of the 108, makes a big difference. The other issue is, and the last one I'll bring up to you is healthcare. On your far eastern end in the Sioux, War Memorial, after years of fighting to be independent, did an arrangement with the University of Michigan Health System through Mid-Michigan. And I've talked to the former administrator, who's a very good friend of mine, and made a huge difference in access to healthcare, coming up 75, and also telemedicine. But there's a saying going around that the one thing you can't find in the UP is an ologist, a specialist. You can't find a dermatologist. You can't find an endocrinologist, an oncologist. I know in Marquette, the oncology practice has one doctor. I think it had 7 a year and a half ago. Certainly that's true all over. People, and representing Escanaba, people go to Green Bay to get health care often. What do you think we can do about healthcare in rural areas? This really is a phenomenon across the country, a lack of specialists and some of the issues we already talked about, housing and childcare and things like that. But what are some of the things that the state of Michigan could be doing to help rural healthcare?
Well, just to set the stage, for 15 years, I've served on Mid-County Rescue Squad as an EMT. And when I sold the station, I went back to school at Bay College and became a paramedic. That was just before the pandemic. So I ended up spending the last 3 years actually at Bay Hospital down in Marinette as a hospital-based paramedic. So I spent about 60% of my time in the ER. So I got to see firsthand a lot of the stuff that you're referring to, and the lack of ologists and the specialties, especially pediatrics, they're leaving the UP. exponentially. In fact, not too long ago, there was a span of time, and I'm sure Marquette figured it out, but there wasn't a pediatrician, and they're level 2. Most of them are level 3, level 4 critical care access points. And yeah, you're right. We rely on telemedicine for a lot of neuro interventions. And then we do a tremendous amount of transportation on the paramedic level down into Wisconsin, specifically Green Bay, Milwaukee, and Madison, depending on the specialty that's needed. And I don't see that getting any better. Healthcare was in trouble going into the pandemic, and the pandemic really took a toll on all healthcare services, from doctors to nurses to EMS. It was both a physical, psychological toll, and the numbers of both EMS and medical professionals that I witnessed personally retire was startling, to say the least. Going forward, we just have to continue to put more and more emphasis on making it desirable to practice in the UP, to practice medicine in general, because it's a nationwide shortage. It's not just exclusive to the UP. There are shortages everywhere. So I don't see this getting any better. But the one thing that helps stabilize this phenomenon that we're in, and I think we're going to be in for a while, is the ability to transport to higher levels of care. So right now I just signed on to a bill package that helps stabilize quality of life issues for nurses on patient to nurse ratios. I think I saw that firsthand as being a big issue in our hospital, as well as I know it was happening because I was hearing stories from other hospitals. Just nurses, medics, doctors, just overwhelmed, because everybody thought that after the pandemic that healthcare was going to get kind of a break, and quite the opposite happened. As soon as the mask came off and people let their guard down, we started to notice that there was a little bit of a lag effect on people's immune system, and people actually got a little bit sicker, and we had a lot of coagulopathy issues, and things are still dicey, and I think this is going to be a tough summer. But hopefully we work our way through that, and like I said, we can get healthcare realigned, bring quality of life back to the profession, and try to start to shore up the ranks as things go forward.
Yeah, we had some research we put on our website and in my column that talked about teachers and nurses leaving the profession in huge numbers, in just very big numbers, for the reasons you just described. One last, Brenna, do you have anything you want to ask?
Actually, yeah, I have been holding on to a question. I didn't quite get a chance to jump in. You were mentioning growing UP-wide issues, growing the job availability on the east side of the UP, in contrast to Marquette and the western side of the UP, other cities. What kind of job availability, like specifically, or specific industries, were you thinking about you would like to see grow?
Boy, as an entrepreneur, you never know what's going to pop up. Just having that availability, putting policy in place that allows an entrepreneur to invest, and for the state to not get in the way. And I can tell you, for someone that bought a truck stop that had been shut down for almost 2 years, pulled it out of bankruptcy and got it restarted, I noticed that a lot of the issues that were preventing my success were bureaucratic related with the state of Michigan. So really just opening things up so that the entrepreneur and that private money, private equity can flow into some of these economically depressed zones. And that's one of the things that I've been thinking about is trying to create renaissance zones where there's actually, incentives to go in and invest into some of these communities and get things going, whether it be hotel, hospitality, you name it. Because a lot of those areas that I'm talking about have a great trail system as well as a tourism system during winter and summer. So I see a lot of ability there, but there's just not a lot of investment. Right now, we're seeing some significant investment up in Munising, which that gives me hope, because when I see that, I see the ability across the rest of the eastern, portions, as well as some of the western portions, up through Big Bay and things like that have really been withering. So really just trying to get government out of the way so that free market equity can flow into the area is what's the most important to me, because a lot of these counties, they have all their eggs in baskets, like the prison system, healthcare, things like that, schools. Those are the major employers, and they're needed. Local government, those are all needed, but they shouldn't be the backbone of the economy. The backbone of the economy should be the private sector. So, and that's really what I'm looking to see happen in the UP. It's almost an inversion when you think about it in the UP as far as who the primary employer is.
Well, Representative,
That's a good
thank
answer.
you. I say to folks all the time that we ought to spend time thanking people who run from local government to state representative to statewide office. It's a huge sacrifice, and to you and your family to try to serve democracy and to serve the public good. So thank you very much for doing that, and for taking time away from your family and business to serve. And thank you for taking the time to do this podcast. I thank you very much, and I hope you'll do it again with us soon.
Oh, absolutely. Reach out anytime.
Good deal. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Brenna, thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your time.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yes, sir. You too.